Good evening. Tonight, I'm expecting 2 to 3 co-hosts on the show with me. This is a news podcast that's politically driven, but we also cover other topics such as religion and culture. Last week, we got into an unexpected heated debate about Tyre Nichols mainly because of the philosophy of the three different hosts were almost entirely different from one another. I would like to give just a few more updates on that because last week many of us were unprepared. So the first thing is in that particular case, the two police officers that were involved and hit him the hardest, Desmond Mills Jr. and Emmett Martin, had already pleaded guilty before anything went to trial. They also testified against the other three defendants in the state trial, and the federal charges will not be accumulated and complete until this summer. Now, I just want to go over some details that were left out last week. There was never much talk about exactly why they pulled him over except for possible reckless driving. The two things that were disturbing in the beginning was that they yanked him out of the vehicle almost as hard as they possibly could, stripping him of any type of rights and not telling him promptly why they pulled him over. Because of them shuffling him around on the ground and putting pressure on him, including pepper spray, I found out he had Crohn's disease and he only weighed 145 pounds at 29 years. And that's not a lot of weight. So what he did is, because of their intimated bullying, he ran away. He ran about 200 yards, and he was only 200 yards from his mother's when he was taken down again. Now, one humorous thing about the videos is, did you know that 4 out of the 5 officers were completely out of breath? They could not catch him, and they had to call in another squad car. But then when they finally did catch him in the residential neighborhood, it was Emmett Martin and Desmond Mills that beat him the hardest. It was also came out in the news that after they beat him, they did not inform the ambulance on how many blows they had kicked him, hit him in the head. And that could have saved his life. He could have gotten a CAT scan, and maybe some pressure could have been taken off his brain. But the county autopsy person ruled it as a homicide, even though it took him 3 days to die. Also, Suzette mentioned to me in a video she sent me on Mother's Day that I think her name was Rogine, but his original biological mother did put him up for adoption in Sacramento. She wasn't the one who raised him, but he lived with her and her husband, his stepdad, the last 4 to 5 years of his life. And he followed in his stepdad's footsteps and worked at FedEx. And he was also learning the forklift at FedEx. And he had a 4-year-old son. So the amount, I was watching the video she sent me, there was a former lawyer on there. And he said that the civil lawsuit could be thrown out just on the basis that Rogine or whatever her name is not his legal representative. She has no parental rights to him, but she's having Benjamin Crump sue the city for $550 million. Now, that's an outrageous amount. The George Floyd family got $27 million from Minneapolis, which is also a very conducive area. I think Don might be calling in. I'm going to Suzette, you can stay on hold one more minute while I pull in Don. Just a moment. Yeah, Don just called in, so I'm going to call him. Hi, Don. I merged the calls. Don Gallimore and Suzette are both on the line now.
Okay.
So I am going to talk about other news tonight, but we're reviewing the case of Tyre Nichols from last week because John went off on a Law and Order tirade about how the whole case was handled in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, I just want to mention one more fact. I'll give you a briefing, Don, in a sec. Memphis is 75% black and over 50% of their police force is black. The fact that they brought in a all-white jury from Chattanooga to try the case, as this judge who had retired said, it was a sign that the 3 black officers were going to get off. The 2 had already pleaded guilty, so that was the 2 most violent officers. But did you follow the case at all, Don? Hello, Don.
No, I have not. Hello, everyone, first of all.
Well, it happened January 7, 2023. It's been in the news for 2 years, and 3 of the black officers were exonerated this past week.
And what was I forgot what the...
And all the officers are still facing federal charges. The contingent... Yeah, I'll tell you what happened.
Okay.
Suzette defended the defendant, which was Tyre Nichols, who died 3 days later. John lambasted him with a number of political assumptions based on his race. He also called him a kid, and he was 29 years old with Crohn's disease. He was a full-time employee at FedEx, but he got pulled over for reckless driving, even though it was never fully defined. He got yanked out of his vehicle and not told why he was pulled over. They slammed him to the ground. He was laying sideways. They kept screaming at him to get down on his stomach. They sprayed pepper spray in him, and they were being real brutal. And some of the pepper spray got in the cop's eye, so then he got more mad. There were side comments that I'll mention in a minute. After about 60 seconds, Tyre Nichols broke free and ran 200 more yards towards his mother's house. He was very close to his mother's when he was pulled over. They eventually caught up with him, but it took them a while. And then 5 officers took turns kicking him in the head, slapping him, beating him with a baton. This one officer in particular, Desmond Mills, and Emmett Martin were most brutal. And by the time the ambulance came, the officers failed to report exactly all the harm they did to him. And he was not taken care of very well at the hospital, and he died. And now there's a civil lawsuit. So,
a civil lawsuit by his birth mother.
His birth mother, who did not raise him, but he lived in her home the last 4 years of his life.
So there was a birth mother's home that he was in or near when they caught him.
Right. And apparently they mended their relationship, and he got back in touch with his birth mother after he was raised. But he grew up in Sacramento, and they moved to Memphis. That was their first mistake.
You don't lie. Those people are still living in the dark ages. Slavery tenets abound. I think they still have sundown. I think Memphis is a raw town. The people probably the most intelligent caste, and they still live in probably not too much farther than 1960. So
well,
kind of behind.
I beg to differ a little bit because it used to be white.
It was a black. Yeah, go ahead, Suzette.
Yeah, but this area, this particular case in that city, there was a black judge, black prosecutor, black district attorney person. Did I say prosecutor already?
Yeah.
So,
well, I just can't deny.
And black cops.
It's 75% black. And, when a black person gets power, some of them take that power to the nth degree. And so we're looking at that's what's dividing the minority communities, is that there are some people who actually, they call it Tomming or becoming Uncle Toms, where they go over to, change their names and look to be, whatever you want to be with the, another, just kind of a lackey in a way. And so you got those who are going to be the kind who might sell slaves. So that's something that, you might have some of those that work that way, but I don't know if I'm going to agree with anything of that, but I don't know about Tyrese.
It's Tyre. There's no S.
Okay, well, I do know a little bit about Memphis, but because it was a grand old southern city. It was the hub of everything, going Florida all the way up to Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, and even New York. So that was a hub on not only the Mississippi, but the going up the coast, 95. So you're talking about getting over to 95, but you're talking about an amazing city that was, but it had a huge black influence. That's why you had the blues town, downtown blues.
I was gonna mention that it's a big blues city.
Yeah, no, huge. I've been down some blues. It's amazing how much it's ingrained in their culture. It's kind of like New Orleans and the Dead. New Orleans and their cemeteries that are above ground, all of their ghosts and voodoo and large mansions. It's just screams south. And like you said, it's kind of like Who Wants To, because it's so much history, but it's so much damage and hatred and it's vibes in the air. The energy is.
Well, Suzette wanted to bring up, the mother factor because she was the birth mother. So go ahead, Suzette.
Oh, she's the one that's suing for that $500 million.
Which is crazy. That's probably what their city budget is.
The mayor said it would bankrupt the city for that. And she wasn't, I don't know, the adoptive parents that pretty much, they raised him, and it wasn't until the latter part of his life that he lived with his mother. And yet she's suing the city for that money. That says a lot about her character right there, to try and profit off of her son's death, while the adoptive parents haven't said anything as far as any type of civil suit or anything like that. I'm sure they're just as hurt by this and devastated as well, because it was their son,
And the only
so
yes,
I think she's a little out of line, and hopefully she'll be dismissed.
And the only reason I brought it up is because we didn't have all the facts in the first show. We were just kind of shooting from the hip, but I still think we made good conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the time we're going to spend on it. I'm sure the other 3 officers who got off learned a lesson. Their future employment is probably still in shambles right now, and I don't know what they're going to do for an alternative. But one of them said they lied because one of the cops, because he had a special needs son, and he didn't want to lose his insurance through the police. So the next topic tonight is Donald Trump is providing a refuge for over 54 Afrikaners from South Africa who claims that they're persecuted. They don't have a lot of government protection in their farming industry, and they feel threatened. And 54 of them came to America today, and maybe more will still be coming. Does anybody have a comment on that? I don't think they applied for refugee status. I think Trump sought them out.
I wonder what they were. I didn't hear the story, but I'm wondering how they were being persecuted.
They claim that they were being targeted, and the government did not protect them.
Right. It's almost like they're going to be slaves, and they didn't want that. I don't know why.
Protect them from what, though? And how are they being targeted?
I guess maybe somebody was damaging their crops. I'm looking it up. I only read the headline news.
They were going to make them slaves. They were going to take their land and more or less make them still work the land. And they said no.
Okay, I have the story here. The U.S. government has officially granted 54 Africans, South Americans, white descendants of Dutch colonizers, refugee status, and they are going to land today. U.S. authorities, just a second, they arranged a charter flight for them. NPR got an email confirmation of the plan that the news arrival will be sent on their final destination across the countries. They're going to be accepted in the U.S. by executive order. The Secretary of State and Homeland Security shall take appropriate steps consistent with the law to prioritize humanitarian relief, including resettlement. I'm trying to get to the second part of the story. Other states that have agreed to take them is Alabama, California, Idaho, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, New York, Nevada, North Carolina, and Iowa. They have been given PI refugee status, according to the State Department. They are expected to support themselves as soon as they can, taking jobs like warehousing, manufacturing, and customer service. Any credentials from their home country may not automatically be accepted. They accused the South African government of doing some terrible things and said they are confiscating land, which John said. They asked for a new land reform earlier in the year, but not have gotten it. Their land has been confiscated and expropriation without compensation. They didn't get refinanced for things that they produced and things of that nature. I just thought I'd mention it because I didn't, I've never heard of that minority group being in trouble before, and it's something new to me. On the other hand, they could have gone back to Denmark, right?
Yeah.
You guys are so.
Well,
I don't even believe.
now you're going to say, you white people are dumb socks.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. It is so sad to see what will happen in America in the next 40, 50 years just by nature, just by God's divine So what we don't understand, you saw me send that clip to you, Jane, didn't you?
I didn't see it because I was reading a news brief.
Okay, well, anyway, bottom line is that it's going to be a natural occurrence anyway. So what we're trying to do is just make this as seamless as possible. And I mean, these guys.
I don't have anything against it. I'm just wondering, if they've been in South Africa 300 years, don't they have any homies to back them up?
No, they're down there by themselves. They don't have anyone except now the Chinese are coming in, but they're just buying up stuff and they're pushing them out too because they want some of their land too. So this is, they're colonizing Africa, but in essence they're decolonizing because they can't keep up with the population growth. That's, malaria, AIDS, they're killing Africans left and right.
There's not that many big diseases in South Africa like there are in places like Malawi and stuff.
Right, no, there aren't, but that's not the point here. The point is that there are natural occurrences. This is a natural occurrence where blacks are taking over, naturally. So it's going to happen. It's already started to happen in France.
Well, it says that the indigenous people will eventually rise up in their own land.
Well, read what I sent you, and that's just, people don't believe Jesus is black. It's all.
Don't get into that tonight, okay?
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Because there's a Catholic saint named Miss Faustina. So she saw Jesus in the flesh, and she described his image to someone and had him painted. And it looks exactly like the Brad Pitt Jesus that was in the Ten Commandments.
Whatever. All I know is that, as I said, I go to these churches all around pretty much.
You don't go to church. Pat told me.
No, when I go there, I sightsee. And churches are a major part of the understanding the history. And every Catholic church anywhere has a black Jesus on the wall.
That's in Europe, not America.
No, it's in Europe, and it is in Southern America, but we have a black pope where it should be again. So we're talking about the meat shall inherit the earth. This is biblical. This is what.
Okay, let's pick a topic that we can all relate to.
Well, I know you can't relate to the fact that white people are getting slaves.
Let them go back to Denmark, damn it.
They're not going.
They can cultivate tulips in greenhouses.
Well, it's like the English and the French.
Or the Netherlands. I think it's the Netherlands.
Yeah, no, Denmark and Netherlands.
Okay, I have a question. Do you guys want there's two more topics. Should we discuss the $400 million jet Qatar wants to give Donald Trump that violates the Emma Lumens clause? Or should we discuss that Trump cracked down on prescription drug companies and they have to lower their prices 50% in 30 days, or he's attempting to cut them off? Which one?
I don't know anything about the prescription drug. The other one, I don't care. But
do you think? Well, they have to debug the jet if they're going to accept it as a gift.
Yeah, really.
He's not going to be able to. He's not going to be able to. First of all, he's not going to be able to accept it. It's not going to be something that, not in his personal name or as just for the president.
Right. If he accepts it, it'll be on behalf of the U.S.
But it should be an American-made.
Yeah, I don't trust it.
It's from Boeing. It's from some.
So, Yeah, well, they still have Chinese mechanics and whatnot, so yeah.
Yep.
And parts, and so yeah, nah, I wouldn't trust it.
Nope.
But on another note, we have Governor Gavin Newsom, who has spent, I guess, close to $1 billion now on supposed homelessness, and yet it has increased yearly to where it's exploding, and no one knows where the money went. But then on the other hand, there are the people that dug deeper and found out that it went to supposedly these not NGOs that were doing research on how they can fix the homelessness problem, and other NGOs that would pass out drugs and whatever else that the homeless wanted.
You mean like that kind of program, like where they give Suboxone to people who are addicts, and they can.
Yeah, well, needles, clean needles. He's all for that, and helping these people by giving them the stuff that's actually keeping them in the streets. But and now he says that he has an urgent address to the local governments and stuff to start getting rid of these homeless encampments. He wants them all cleared out now. And it's like, well, okay, so where are you going to put them? Number one, because yeah, you can clear their tents and their belongings and stuff, but they're just going to come back. You're not doing anything except for just moving their stuff into the trash can, but you're not doing anything about the people themselves that are homeless. And some of them drug addicted, some of them are just newly homeless. Those are not lost yet. The other ones that have been there forever on the streets, it seems like, aren't comfortable there now. But nevertheless, he's having these local governments deal with it. And it makes no sense. It's like, here, you said you were going to tackle it, and you made some really poor decisions in spending taxpayer money to buy buildings to home these people. But it's like beachfront, property costing millions of dollars and only housing 20 people. It makes no sense. And so now he's turning it over and giving it to the local governments to take care of it. And it doesn't make any sense because local governments don't have the money to do that. California is poor.
Yeah, I heard a story on NPR about a year ago in the San Joaquin Valley near Fresno. Mm-hmm. They had some new city ordinance that the homeless people could only congregate in one or two areas, and the places they normally congregated, the local police had to kick them out. So, let's say they're standing in front of a store at 8 a.m. and they're still there at 11, then the local police have to come by and enforce it. And the story said that they were wasting too many local police dollars on doing stuff like that when they couldn't really control it anyway. The people who are used to going to the same places are going to go back anyway, and it was just a complete waste of money.
Yeah,
not really. Have you guys been to San Francisco lately?
I went in October when my sister died.
There's no more Fisherman's Wharf. It's gone.
Yeah,
It's gone?
Yeah.
It's gone. All the businesses, all the restaurants, all that was lined Fisherman's Wharf are all buildings for lease. They're gone.
That's sad.
Well, it's because they had that fire. And they couldn't.
Downtown
is still hopping in San Francisco.
Fisherman's Wharf is gone because the businesses couldn't, during COVID, they couldn't survive.
I think they had a fire out there too, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But anyway, it was both. But they have relegated the homeless to just, I will say this, just all the way up down 5th and 6th Street. And that is a huge improvement over what it had been a couple of years ago. So a lot of the figures that people are coming up with are figures that are from the past, not necessarily real time. And in real time, they Francisco has cleaned up a lot of its downtown. And
Well, its downtown looked beautiful when I was there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They cleaned it up, 2 years before I was there before, and Gordon went to the Warriors Lakers game, and where we went under the bridges, the arena is like under the highways. And that was even. I mean, the highway it used to be under the.
I know where you mean by kind of by a spaghetti ball.
Yeah, and then that Mission and Union and those places, those were cleaned up. It's a transformation. I don't know where that money went, but whatever they spent on, they've done an amazing job so far. They still got work to do, but it is cleaned up. I haven't seen it like this in decades. Maybe I'm trying to remember because I used to go there as a kid too, and I used to do a lot of traveling all the time, and San Francisco was always kind of beat up, but in downtown anyway. But
guess who the Golden State Warriors are playing tonight?
I'm watching the Timberwolves.
Yep, and the Timberwolves are ahead in the series.
Yes, and they're ahead in the game too.
Woohoo!
Well, I mean, yeah, you're still in the 30s. Your temperature out there in Duluth, right?
No, it was 85 yesterday and 75 today.
Okay, but it was 35 3 days ago.
I know, we had a heat wave.
Well, that's all right. You're going to have another heat wave for a minute, and then another cold wave is going to come through there. We're getting it right now.
So, Suzette, why don't you talk about that robotic thing you were talking about at the end of last show while I called John quick on my other phone quick?
Yeah, I missed last week's show. What did you talk about robotics?
She talked about a new company, an AI company.
Let her talk.
All right.
I was talking about Peter Thiel and his new contract with our government, working with our defense as well as just in general with lawmakers, and how his technology basically is pre-crime that can be used domestically and also militarily. It's not a good thing. We have a surveillance state already going. It's been, being slowly introduced over the years, over different presidents. And it's just not a good thing. It's part of the, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. In their conference in 2023, they had talked about using AI systems to be able to, in order to get compliance from different countries, to be able to have control of their utilities. So basically, what had happened in the UK as far as their power being gone, and then recently, I guess it was Spain. And so they're testing out different ways and how it affects, the country itself or portions of the country. And I thought that was interesting because they talked about that in 2023, and now we're seeing it happening. And it's pretty scary.
What's scary about it? I mean, if we have control of it, at least we have a chance. It's like nuclear. We have a chance at least to slow it down or stop its worldwide presence.
Well, the scary part about it is the World Economic Forum having any power through that, using that.
Okay. I mean, what do they have something to do with that?
Who? The WEF?
Yeah.
The WEF is, Peter Thiel is a member of the WEF, so why wouldn't they have that, what do you call it, that power or that system?
Okay, I'm just wondering, okay, if it's coming online and we have first control of it, you know, I mean, we're a weak country just like space. We had the moon and then all of a sudden we let that some bitch go. But what's wrong with him developing it in America for American use? Are you defending it or are you against it?
I'm against it because we don't need that type of surveillance here in the U.S. That pre-crime, pre-behavioral, garbage.
We already have it. I mean,
Did you know that
anywhere,
in England?
Anywhere.
Did you know in England they didn't even have a national criminal database till 2011?
I don't know what that means. They have the
There was a guy who was a pedophile in a small country town in England, and he had had 2 or 3 other cases in 3 other counties, and he killed 2 10-year-old girls, and they didn't caught he was a suspect, but they didn't know any of his background because there was no streamlined national criminal database at that time. And after those 2 girls died, Parliament started one, and they streamlined all criminals for all 43 police jurisdictions in England.
Well, my thing is that they have Interpol, so that's mostly the worldwide. But if that's just their police system breaking down, lazy white fucks. I mean,
Come on, Don.
I'm just kidding.
I know what else we can talk about. I'm praising Donald Trump for one thing. He got Edom Alexander released, an American Israeli with dual citizenship, who had been in a hostage for 584 days. He was released today, and his family got to see him.
Oh, that's good.
And there are still 20 more hostages that Hamas has. The Hamas did it voluntarily, not for an exchange.
Well, they've got the 30-day. They're trying to put 30 days on Israel. Ceasefire.
Yeah, they did it. They did it behind Netanyahu's back. It was the U.S., the Hamas, and another Arab country that participated in the negotiations. And things are looking up because now the American and Chinese met in Switzerland this weekend, and they came to a new agreement too with tariffs. So things are looking up for the second half of 2025.
I don't know if they come up with a package or did they say they came up with the agreement that they should talk.
They made an actual agreement that China would pay 30% in tariffs and the U.S. would pay 10%. That's down by like 110%. It is kind of a circus that Trump should have never started.
Build that wall with our money and make us happy.
Somebody's phone is a little gargly, I hate to tell you guys.
Yeah, I know, I heard that. I don't know if it's my phone.
Who's speaking when it gets gargly?
In other headline news, Pope Leo, who can speak Italian and English and Spanish proficiently, has called all world governments to end the war in Gaza and the Ukraine. He's been very forthright about it and not back down. And he's calling for peace constantly and providing messages of unity. And his first sermon that he gave on Sunday was almost an exact replica of the first Pope Leo in 429. A.D., which the same Pope who lived 17 years apart from Saint Augustine. So it was almost an identical sermon about the deity of Jesus, half man, half God, and the authenticity of Jesus as the Savior. Don, can you mute yourself for a second to see if it's me and Suzette or you?
Okay, I was just want to say, you can't get him mad because he's a black dude from Chicago.
He's white, you bonehead.
What?
He's white.
He's a fucking black dude. What is wrong with you, Jay?
He's not black.
Okay, anyway, go. Okay.
You're going colorblind in your old age.
Will you look it up, please?
Robert Francis Prevost.
Black dude.
And his white honky brother was in Rome this week with Lester Holt.
Yeah, he's probably depends on. He's probably black too. Read it. His immigrant. With Creole.
They don't have Michael Jackson shoe polish.
No, they sure don't. That's why they can pass. And pass, they did. Pass the whole damn time, please. Now you got.
You're a weirdo. You're a weirdo.
Well, he went down to Peru for a while, learned some Spanish.
So he got a tan in Peru.
No, he got it from his parents. He got it from mom and daddy.
If he was black, he would have been going to an AME church in Chicago.
He might have. He might.
I'm looking at his picture. He's Caucasian, I hate to tell ya.
Read his bio. Oh my God.
Okay, he was born in Mercy. He was born in Mercy Hospital. I'm looking. His mother, Mildred Agnes Nee Martinez. She might be half Spanish. Asian?
Haitian.
His mother isn't Haitian.
They're Creole.
Okay, I'm looking. Just a minute. I have to switch screens.
No problem. Switch all those screens you want.
Louis Martin, John Joseph, those are his brothers. Go ahead, Suzette.
Oh, no, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Are you reading anything?
The grandparents are Italian and French on the father's side. They were part of the Italian diaspora. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait. Joseph Martinez, his mother's dad, is New Orleans-born mixed race and Black Creole. Okay, he probably has a 4th or an 8th black in him, like Meghan Markle.
And he voted against getting rid of the priests that were committing pedophilia or, child molesting.
Good, because that's an important topic.
Well, yeah, he should have voted to get rid of him, but he voted against getting
Oh,
rid
he
of him.
did?
Yes.
Yes, he did. And that was a big thing
That's a huge thing.
Pope Francis got rid of a cardinal that nobody would touch as far as legal issues. He canned a cardinal that had been accused during his tenure.
Well, Suzette, they chose a peacemaker, which is what he is, over a pedophile, which he probably was.
You know what? He wasn't a pedophile. Maybe it's kind of like a brotherhood club. They probably didn't want a shame on their hands.
I told that now, man. That's one of my sons who went through college, Catholic, everything Catholic, past Catholic. So the main thing, the very first thing you tell anybody is never, ever let especially a boy, with a bad taste in a room by himself. You never do that. That's the first thing you learn as a Catholic. Because that boy is and that males are males and females are females. That these guys have it all upside down and backward, and I wouldn't trust now one of them. And I went to college at Marquette University, one of the biggest Jesuit colleges around. And you don't mess with any priest. Period.
I want to read something quick. Robert Prevost, who is now Pope Leo, his family records indicate Creole ancestry with his maternal grandparents identified as black or mixed race. While this means he has black ancestry, the actual percentage is difficult to determine without detailed genealogy or info. So Don, why don't you send him a 23andMe packet?
Because they're going out of business. They're bankrupt. So,
No, they're not. The Catholic Church is hopping. They just got a bunch of new converts.
No, 23andMe is going bankrupt. Not the Catholic Church. But yeah, no. So for the most part, you got a black pope, you had black presidents. It's coming where we're going to have, we'll be on top as usual.
You know what Bianchi said? Bianchi said that Meghan Markle wasn't black.
Bianchi is he's not Egyptian.
So I felt like that was wrong just because she doesn't look black. By the way, you guys...
Black. Everybody is black. That's what there's a study out saying that...
No, they all come from the Scandinavian goddess named Janessa.
Janessa had the hardest time having one.
Janessa has... If you guys watch my video later tonight, my teeth are getting whiter.
That's good.
Yeah, you're losing your calcium.
So I was going to tell you guys something. Last week, John said he was bitter against society because they stole his car cover and they stole his business, his wife, his property, and his ex-girlfriend stole his keys. I thought it was funny that he said that America stole his wife when it was really his band member who did. So
Who said that?
yeah, he said they stole my wife. You can listen to the archive on my show. But I'm just saying, do you guys understand, when I lived in LA, I already had a presumption that my car would get broken into living in East Hollywood. And one time it was broken into in Reseda. So when you live in a city of 25 million and there's a lot of immigrants and irregular criminals, the chances of you getting criminalized in a city of 25 million is 15 times bigger than if you live in Duluth, Minnesota. Right?
Agreed.
So I did.
I never had, except for my convertibles, which is that's all I drive is convertibles, and they're the only things that ever got stolen. I got something stolen from, but I had really nice cars, and they never bothered me. And
well, you also park in the front yard.
I parked my car. I didn't park my Beamers.
When I was there in October, you parked your car in the front yard right on the grass.
Oh, you're talking about here in Reno. I thought I could do whatever I wanted, but somebody called on me, and so I had to stop. They said it was against code.
The reason I brought John up this week is that, I've been in a group therapy type thing for Gamblers Anonymous 10 years, and I'm just being kind of personal, and I'm not picking on him, but if if someone has gone through a lot of trauma and lost a lot of things in life, like he lost 3 jobs because they closed their doors and then they like merged with another company. So I think sometimes when people have that many bad things happen to them, that they have a certain level of trauma that they should get help for. Because he just threw that out there in the middle of the show last week.
That would make sense, but I would rather speak with him here to defend himself. Or
Yeah, I'm not criticizing him, but we had a long conversation after the show the following 2 nights, and it all came down to philosophy. And I'm not going to talk about law enforcement anymore tonight, but some people just have very centralized ideas about what the police should do and what they shouldn't. And in Duluth, Minnesota, and Minnesota in general, we're going more towards community policing, like building relationships in the community so people don't feel so threatened. So do you guys have anything else on your mind before we close out the show? We've been on the air 55 minutes.
55 minutes?
Yeah, no.
I don't feel like I called John on both phones and he didn't pick up, so I just can't be doing that in the middle of the show.
I'm just warming up. But
Yeah.
no, I just wanted to make a comment about community policing, 21st century community policing, because that's my bailiwick. I have.
I know you and Pat do it.
Yeah, we have. My mom was the first type of 21st century where she was a beat cop, and so she had the community's ear. She knew what the youngsters were doing, and it made life a lot easier. So because she knew all the people around. So this is something that we needed for a stabilization of our police forces, and that's what we got, and that's what we've gotten so far. I was able to help institute it here in Reno because Reno was one of the first police departments that responded to it completely, adopted it completely. So we were at the forefront. We helping Chicago and Philadelphia, and
it's a good thing altogether, because it makes us less reliant on government when we can lean on each other. And because we're in a community, we're a lot closer and directly involved with each other. And kind of the whole thing as far as you see your neighbor's kids, they're, at a store or whatever, and they're not supposed to be there, or they're supposed to be in school, or your kids are not supposed to be, they're supposed to be in school, It keeps kind of everybody, on the same page. So you build safe neighborhoods that way, I think. And, I think it's about community, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, we've started developing our volunteer force. They are, I think the volunteer community servants or something like that, their name, but they're paid, bicycle cops, more or less community cops. They don't necessarily have guns per se, and they're on bicycles or those 2-wheel, Paul Blair, mall cop. So you got them in the streets with blue jackets, and they're helping people out. So that's something that we're really pushing. And we've got also the HEAT team, the human trafficking team. So.
And it's not necessarily a religious thing, because there may be people in the neighborhood or the group that are not necessarily religious. It's just community. And if you have a foundation of servant leadership, then would take care of itself as far as the whole thing is looking to neighbors being neighbors versus people living next door to each other.
I think in older communities that can be pulled off. But in older communities it can be pulled off. But I live in a transient college area, and the only neighbors I know is the two guys who live below me. I don't know any of my neighbors.
Oh.
Why?
And I live by a creek. I have a creek on one side and a guy who works for Wolf Energy on the other, and I've only seen him once. Because I work overnights and I come home at 7 in the morning and then I sleep till 2. I just don't make time to meet people.
You've been there, what, 6 years?
No, 12.
That doesn't make sense.
I've been here since 2012.
That's a long time.
I know people in Duluth. I just don't know my immediate neighbors.
Oh.
Okay.
I know my immediate neighbors. They were a really big help when I first went down as far as not knowing what was going on and what happened to me and stuff. When I got home from the hospital, they had brought dinner, my neighbors on both sides of myself, and down the street. So that was very nice.
When you fell, did you have your phone nearby?
Nope. I just had called out for my husband. I'm like, babe, you gotta get a chair. He's like, well, he was just waking up himself, and he was all disoriented. And I'm like, you need to get a chair now. I'm gonna fall. You're gonna have to hold. He's like, all right, here. And he slipped it underneath me, and I'm like, God, I said, I can't feel my legs. He's like, what? I said, I think you're asleep.
Like you're confused,
like,
yeah.
So.
Even you were confused, probably, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it was just all too weird. And then we called the ambulance because we didn't know what was going on. And so anyway, but yeah, so my neighbors were really cool when I got back from the hospital. I was there a month, and so they were really kind.
Did they bring you guys a dinner?
They brought us dinners for a full month. They each took turns, so that was so cool.
That's really nice.
It was a relief because I would usually do the cooking. So since then, my husband's done a pretty good job learning and cooking now. But yeah, it was stressful too because I didn't want anybody to see me. But can't really turn them away because they're being so generous. And so yeah, it was a struggle. But the point being is that they had learned about what had happened and they were there. So.
That's great. When my daughter Alexis, they discovered that her heart was damaged, and we had 1 year of like medications and heart transplant workups and all that. People brought us food for a month in Stoughton, Wisconsin, a small town where my husband was the principal.
Oh, that's nice. And my front neighbor, we did that. We helped her out for a couple of weeks because she was in between jobs.
Really?
So, yeah. So we all just kind of, help out. But it's not only just good for that. It's just good to know your neighbors because you may find out that one is a doctor or one is a carpenter or somebody, they have some type of skill or profession that the community can also benefit from. So should the shit hit the fan, pardon my language, at least you have a doctor down the street that, if a kid gets sick and there aren't any medical facilities that are open or are overrun, that they can help out, or carpenter if your roof is leaking. And so, as far as services go, help each other out, maybe give each other price breaks or, type of trade. What do they call that?
Bartering.
Bartering. And so, sometimes that happens. We had a lady at the end of the row needed her roof fixed, and so my husband helped and my other neighbor helped, and so they patched that up. And it was no big deal as long as she brought bought the materials and they just put it together and fixed it for her. They didn't do the whole roof, but they patched a roof, so it's good enough to for the next whatever amount of years.
That's really great. I have two more smaller stories to tell before the show ends. Today I went to the post office at 8 a.m. to get a certified letter from the IRS. And I had 6 identical certified letters from the IRS, all sent certified, the exact same letter, the exact same certified numbers. So I was wondering who's behind the scenes at Doge, in which they send 6 letters of the same topic to each participant in the government system. So I made a joke on it on Facebook, and one of my conservative friends went off on me and said, well, it took years to fix it, and you expect it to be all perfect in 110 days? And I was just making a joke that I got 6 letters that I had to sign for that were all the same thing. And then I was going through my voicemail today on my home phone, which I only check once every 6 months, because it's usually bill collectors. So I was hitting delete, the same old like cronies. And all of a sudden I got a message from October 2nd from my older sister 18 days before she died, saying that she didn't think she was going to make it. And she felt sorry for her husband, and that I love you, Jane, and I love your son very, very much. And I had never picked up the message. It was 6.5 months later. And then the worst part, I hit pound and I tried to save it. Then I went back in the system and it was gone. So I couldn't even save it for my family to listen to.
Don't tell me that.
It was pretty depressing.
I bet.
Yeah.
That was the last time you would hear her. Well, I don't want to make
her
it worse,
voice.
But her voice.
And it was startling, but I had just finished a 9-hour shift and dealt with all the IRS stuff. And had I been a little more coherent, I think I would have managed to save that message properly. But I wasn't really coherent because I had been up 11 or 12 hours.
Right.
So it was still touching.
It's like getting a letter from, your husband or spouse or a loved one that passed away, and you get a letter like a month later. It comes, and you read it. But in this case, it was a voicemail.
I know, isn't that dumb?
One
time I sent out Christmas cards from a Duluth post office, and 6 people got them 3 months later in March.
Oh, no.
They must have been thrown. They must have been thrown like in the back bin, and then somebody found them on the floor or something.
Oh boy.
I know. Dawn, do you have any heartwarming stories? Dawn? Well, anyways, I'm studying Kierkegaard right now.
No, I don't have any. I mean, I've been, I think I mentioned on another, been elected to be the Washoe County Black Caucus chair. So I'll be expanding my responsibilities to be that. We've been doing all kinds of events. We just came from a Chamber of Commerce business. I don't know exactly what you call it, but we had all the businesses in town at the convention center, and we had our G-Fusion Fitness and Health table, along with the ACP table. And so we're extremely active right now. I haven't been able to get to my legislative stuff, but we've got just a couple bills, but our Republican governor has already said he's going to veto most everything that comes through here, especially if it has a fiscal note. So we won't have any opportunity to really do much this legislative session here. But attendance at least the parties. But other than that, family is doing great, but they're just, we're having there's so many growing pains and like that. But it's going fine here.
Okay. Well, I have to.
Congratulations.
There's
Sorry,
a new.
go ahead.
Good job.
One of my daughters is now the Washington County deputy DA. She just got that. I don't know if I.
That's great.
Yes, congratulations.
That's
on
a big
raising
job.
Good, smart kid. Yeah.
I would thank you, but I know it. All my kids. I put my, I used to keep my.
It must be Pat's side of the family.
The grandkids is what the problem is, because they're so spoiled and so talented that they think they can do whatever they want, and their parents are having so many different issues with their spouses, etc. And we're in the middle of it all.
Are you talking about the two girls that live with you?
And the two boys with my daughter.
So their talents are wasting away because they can't be focused? Is that what you're saying?
No, they're doing excellently. They just have so much that they're kind of they're just spoiled.
Yeah.
They expect everything because they do everything. The two girls themselves, for instance, they are in the AP class. And they are in Box Choir, which they've been traveling. My granddaughter has only been here maybe 2 weeks out of the last 2 months, going around to different leadership classes. She was in Girls State. Then she had a competition in Sacramento, and then another one in Knoxberry Farm. Took first place in both, and so it's just they're growing up. They're incredible, but they are spoiled as all get out. So both of them, but they're wonderful girls.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a little spoiled.
They're not spoiled, but they're a lot spoiled.
I know, from what you said.
But they're worth it, and that's one of the things that's the only reason, because I put my foot down with my kids, but it's not that easy when you have to give up that much power to grandkids and to your kids for raising their kids. So that's a pain in the ass, because there's sometimes I want to do what I normally, spank that ass or whatever, and then what my thing is that when I speak, I am a trained speaker, and so when I speak, I can vary my tones and everything else.
You're an orator, yeah.
So I could be the nicest angel or biggest ogre just for my voice inflection. But it's incredible how these kids they are lazy, and I'm worried because it's causing all of these problems, because we're losing in a brain drain our youth. They're on this social media, they're doing these games for hours and days at a time. They don't get anything done right now. They're not accomplishing things, and we're going to a situation where what we're getting done is, again, being almost slave labor, where we're depending on the Chinese for our cheap goods and services, depending on the Mexican, Hispanic community for our food. We're, depending on East Indians for a lot of our software and also the 7-Elevens. And so we're giving away our country, which is the reason we're in the same in this place in the first place. Because we gave back in the 60s, we became so lazy. Fast foods and TV, and we were changing just like this, only in a different scale. But we became so lazy because we were getting things cheap, reliable, and now we don't even make TVs or radios or phones or anything.
Heck, we don't even make our own food. We just call it order.
You're darn straight.
It's a travesty. This is going to be the existential reason we're lost. We've got 57% of our farmland is Chinese, owned by the Chinese. So anytime they want, if they want to choke us off in our own country, they can do it. So, we're facing a lot of challenges just because we're lazy white people.
We're not. Well, people have
any local farmers here anymore.
And the thing is,
people have frozen meals.
That's not nutritious.
And that comes from China.
Those are the things you stay away from because they've got so many man-made
chemicals,
phosphorus, and
plastics,
dyes, and plastics. That's what these things are made of. Your